Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in this afternoon session. Your hosts for now are Krzysztof and Kennie.
Good afternoon, after lunch, and I hope you will not need to sleep. Welcome on our session about telemetry. We will try to show you as much as we know about telemetry. So it will be from basic examples to more advanced, but let's start with few words from us. So maybe, Kennie, you will start.
My name is Kennie Pontoppidan. Oh, by the way, we have 2 hours together here. Me are doing a little extended set. No, we're not. We'll stick to 90. We have plenty of things to show you, but we'll still stick to 90 minutes. My name is Kennie Pontoppidan. I am an old dinosaur, maybe not so much in NAV and BC space. I work as a program manager for Microsoft for the server and database, reporting, performance, stability, and partner telemetry, what we call it. So this is what we're doing here. Yeah.
And I heard that he is using telemetry every day, right? So, my name is Krzysztof Bialowas. I'm from Poland, and I work as a developer, but also as system consultant. I'm Microsoft MVP, and I also focus on telemetry. Quite a lot of things I'm trying to do there. And yeah, I'm working with that every day. Before we will go further with the session, now we would like to learn a little about you when you already joined. So you can take your phones, that's only one time, and we would like to ask you a few questions before we will start. So you can scan the code. Is it working? Yes, it is, I see. Okay, so let's see where you are working. So that's the first question. Okay, most of you are working for ESV. I'm really glad because I'm also working for ESV mostly. And then ESV VAR. All right. Kennie, I think someone from Microsoft also joined okay. Because it's not you.
It's okay, you can be here as well. This is a great crowd, Krzysztof.
Yeah.
Because we actually have something both for ISVs, for VARs, and end customers. So hopefully there's something for all of you here.
Yeah. Okay, let's try with the next one. Do you use telemetry right now? That's also great.
This is fantastic. Now you're in for a treat, because with a lot of the things we're going to show you, you will have clickety-click insights right after. Well, you probably need to enable telemetry, but then, like today, you will be able to go and have Power BI on all your data. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We will use it still, so don't close the app. At the end, in the QA session, we also will have one question for you. But what we will be talking about today, we are in the movie theater, so you can see also some movies, but we would like to tell you a little about basic of telemetry. And it's great because most of you is still not using it. We want to show you also how to get some custom telemetry, send your own signals, right? How to use the Power BI. So do it very easy and analyze the data there. And we also want to talk to you about the notifications, right? So how to be more reactive, how to get more information, not only just see the data, but also do something with that data. And one question which is very common is how to control the cost, how much it costs, will it not blow up and we will not need to pay hundreds of $millions and so on. So that also we would like to show you what you can do not to spend money on it. And good that we have Kennie here, so he will also be able to tell about the plans, what are planned in the next releases. Right, so that's our plan for today. Not this button. So, Telemetry Basics. What is telemetry? So that's something automated, right? So it's automated communication. Some systems send us data from many sources, right? So it's not only about Business Central, but it's in general, right? What does it mean for us? It means that we have less calls and emails. We can get that information faster, right? We don't need to ask the customer the questions which we already have answers. So how we can use telemetry? We can use it, for example, to improve the customer experience, right? How customers are using our software. We can monitor security with permissions and so on. We also can check what is the health of application and also quality and performance. We can check how our application works and if it's a good quality or performance. What does it mean for us? We will see the issues before someone will scream on us, right? So that's why we need it. So who can use telemetry, especially in Business Central? VARs, right? But also end customers, you can share that telemetry with them, maybe even store the telemetry on their Azure subscription. ESVs, right? And also Microsoft is using it as well. You've seen it also on the keynote when they told that they were doing some changes because of that. So, what kind of telemetry we have? In fact, we have two most groups. One is a platform telemetry, and one is a custom telemetry. Right? So we can distinguish those two, and sometimes I will be referring to that. What does it mean, in fact, for us as a Business Central developers? The platform telemetry is sent automatically. We cannot do anything with that, right? So it's just sent. And the second part is something which we can develop, we as a developers. So we can develop the signals, which then will also go to application inside. As you see, we store the data, every data in application inside. That's something which is part of Azure platform. And what we can do later, we can export this data or do something with that. So the first one, we can, for example, see the data in Power BI report. The second place where what we can do is we can, for example, send the alerts from application inside directly. Or we can use Logic App, Power Automate, or anything which can connect with API to application inside and send information. We can, for example, send information on Teams by email, or, for example, through directly to Azure DevOps, reporting the bugs. So what kind of telemetry we have? And now that's really crazy number of telemetry which is. So you can see environment lifecycle, company lifecycle, extension lifecycle, authorization, permissions, configuration, a package, database state, and long-running queries. I will not go through all of that because we don't have time. On the workshops, we try to explain most of them, and it still was a lot of time. So I will just tell you my favorites here. For example, extension lifecycle, right? You can see if your customer is installing some app or upgrade failed or anything else with that, right? Or the second one, which you can see is, for example, database state. So you can see deadlocks, log timeouts, and waiting statistics, which is very also, I think you will show this example, very crazy, right? But it's more. If we will go further, we can see emails if someone sent them or successful or not. Error handling, sensitive field monitoring, job queues, page views, report generation, retention policy, onboarding, which is new, and also web service requests. You can see that some of them are also on-prem. Those red ones are also on-prem, but I will explain you a little later. So from that list, what I have my favorites. For example, job queues. You can see if someone failed the job queue. Probably on app source, or you develop the functionality which says, when my job queue stops, then I'm sending email or have notification about that. You don't need to do it anymore, right? You can just use telemetry for that, for example, with the notification, right? But one very important thing which I need to say here, everything what you will see in the telemetry is GDPR compliance, right? Which means that, for example, in the job queues, you will not see exact error. You will see just that it failed, right? So that's a very important thing. So ESVs, little less for us, right? As I'm saying, because I'm also working for ESV. So what we have, app source submission process, key vault secrets, extension lifecycle again, right? Error handling, long-running queries, page views, report generation, web services, right? So you can see there is also a lot of things which we can do. Few which I really like and which help me a lot is, for example, app source submission process. I don't know if you know that Microsoft is validating all the apps with all the countries which you specify on app source, right, or partner portal, but also is validating all the apps with the version which you specify in application field on app.json. So I found that my app is failing because I put version 19 there, and I use something from version 19.1, right? And typically I would not find it, right? I would just have an error and I would not know why. But I seen it very clearly why it's failing. I seen everything else was okay, but this particular was failing, right? So I was able very fastly fix that code and submit the app the same day. And the second one, which I really love, is error handling, that I can see the errors which users have, right? So every time when someone hit the error, I will see that. It can help me a lot in improving the process. Imagine you have error which you think no one will get, and 50% of your sessions or your users are getting this error. So something is wrong with our application, either with the process, right? Maybe we should redesign that process to help users, right? And the last one, probably Kennie will show this as an example later, page views. I can see where my customers are, right? Which languages they are using, which clients they are using. So if, for example, manager comes to me and say, we should focus on web client or tablet client or phone client, I said no, because no one is using it, right? I can reduce the time of testing because of data from telemetry. And the second, I can also prioritize, for example, translations. Translation are, to be honest, expensive if you want to do it very well. So if you're doing it, if you do that with telemetry and see which languages they're using, you can very fast see where to invest your money. Okay, I was talking about all those numbers, right? All those groups of telemetry, but in fact, each telemetry has special event ID in the database. But there are 4 groups which you can remember when you will see each event. LC starts with lifecycle, RT, runtime events, client events, and application events. So that will help you also later to follow some of the examples, but also how it's work. So I said about VARs, I said about the ESVs, I said also about that Microsoft is using telemetry, right? Whoops, I need to go back. So they are using it a lot, right? They're using it also to improve the system in many, many places. So also we need to be aware of that. And very important link, this is where all of that what I said till now you will find in the documentation, right? So all the events IDs, you can find also the event IDs in the documentation. That's pretty much most of the things which you can learn from the telemetry you will find in the documentation, right? And those red dots which I said, that's something which we found out, to be honest, and I know that in documentation, it also will be very fast updated, right? So have it on mind. Okay, Kennie, so if you can explain us how to query telemetry.
Yeah, thank you, Krzysztof. So bear with us a bit here in this session. We're doing a little bit of technical things first, and then a lot more with clickety-click and ease of use. And I think that's important because it's kind of, we want you to feel a little bit pain, and then after that, when you get to the nice stuff, you go, but it's not really that bad. When you start with telemetry, there's one thing you have to do, and that is enable it. You could enable telemetry either as a var on your environment, and this is done for online in the Tenant Admin Center or using the Tenant Admin Center API. Or if you're on premises, you would need to use PowerShell for that. The second option is if you are an ISV, you can instrument your app or your extension and put in a connection string in there, and that will show exactly the difference between this var telemetry and ISV telemetry. And that's basically how you set this up. So that's fairly easy. Now, to consume this data, the most, like say, the raw data, the way you can query that is using this Kusto query language, KQL. That's also where telemetry maybe has a reputation of being, oh, this is something very technical, because this is where it all starts. If you cannot query, or at least know how to query the data, is that data really useful? Once you then put on visualizations on top, maybe you don't actually have to know this. So if you think KQL is not for you, that doesn't mean that telemetry is not for you at all. Anyway, KQL is a query language. Let me ask just the crowd, how many of you have written a simple SQL statement in your life, like SQL? Oh, nice. How many of you have done anything with bash, shell scripting thing? Oh, cool. You're almost like as old as I am. That's nice. What about PowerShell? Any PowerShellies? Okay. I think you're going to love KQL now because you have the beauty and the semantics of a data language like SQL. And you know the benefits of having piping results through different things in a process like language. And that's exactly what KQL is. It is a beautiful child between SQL and PowerShell. And it is blazingly fast. It's big data, really, when we say big, it is really, really big. I am going to show you a demo on our Kusto cluster, which is the same as yours, but just with our data in it. And we ingest, I think, 4 terabytes of data a day into that. So what I'm querying in that demo is, I don't know, a few petabytes, and you'll still see results in 30 seconds out of that. So the transition between SQL and KQL, you can think of it, there's a few things if you kind of know SQL that would make your life easier when you learn KQL. In SQL, it's a declarative language. You start with a select statement, you do a from, you do a where, group by, order by, and so on. But when the database is executing a SQL statement, it doesn't do it like that. The database will always start with your from clause, then your where clause, then the group by, then the select statement, and then the order by. And that's actually the same thing that happens when you write Kusto. You always, let's see if I can point here, you always start with your table, and then you should do your selection as early as you can to filter early to make sure that your result set is as small as it can be. Then you project the data you need. So project here is the same as select up here. Actually, if you think of it, the select thing in SQL comes from the project operator in relational algebra. They just made a bad name for it in the language. So you project whatever you want, and then you do not a group by, but a summarize something by, and then you can do your order by, and that's kind of how these things relate to each other. Except, of course, that with KQL it doesn't stop there. If I want to, I can put more pipes down here. I could do more projection, more summarize, more blah, 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 blah. And that's where the analogy breaks down between SQL and KQL, and where KQL becomes really, really, really powerful. Let me show you a few examples what you can do out of the box in KQL. So you could do let expressions, both for variables, but also for data sets. So if you want to do some pre-calculation and use that later in your query here, for instance, here I do 2 query expressions with defined here, and then I do a union between them. And then after that union, I can do a join to other things. Doing this is possible in SQL. You can use common table expressions, but it kind of gets really hairy very, very quickly in SQL. Something SQL is not born with is regular expressions. So for the ones of you who did Bash, you probably also did regular expressions. How many regular expressions, anyone? Yeah. That can make you tired, not looking at you, but looking at regular expressions. But it is very powerful, right? If you want to pass a log, if you pass strings, regex is fantastic. And it's built into the language with KQL. So you have a parse operator where you can simply pass a string with some pattern, and it would magically just give you new columns based on that structure. You can do extends, which would be create myself some new calculated columns. And you have the most powerful window functions I've ever seen, where you have a previous operator here. So here I'm doing get me some data from traces, order by time. And now I'm looking back up in the result set. I can look back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows up, or I can look down, further down. And now I can do, so I can say, please give me the timestamp of the previous row, call it previous time, and then extend again, make me a duration column with a difference between these two, and now I have suddenly done a window function. Like, do that in SQL, you can do it. It's not gonna be fun and definitely be hard. And you can even do rendering of histograms or pipe charts or what have you just inside the language. Once you've done some data analysis, you can render some visualization of that to make it easier to understand. Now, 90 minutes, we could do KQL in 90 minutes and just teach you the basics. I wanted to show you something that can really help you if you want to get started with KQL on Business Central Telemetry. Here in BC Tech, on the samples, app insights, and KQL queries, we have a lot of sample queries curated for you. Actually, everything you get in telemetry in Business Central has a query here. So you don't have to write KQL from scratch. You can just copy-paste and start analyze from that. And in here, I added an examples.txt to give you a few queries where you can learn some concepts from. How much time do I have? A few more minutes?
Yeah,
is that okay?
Sure.
Can I steal that? So let me show you a few examples of what you can do in KQL here.
I switch over.
Perfect. Here. So this is just a text file. You can get it from GitHub. So one thing that is very often you do in data analysis on telemetry is, give me the top 10 most blah, or top 10 least, or some kind of top 10 of things. So that's something you simply do with a summarize, and then an order by, and then a top clause. Let me show you an example of that. So here is a query about apparently component updates. If only I have some good Wi-Fi that would open that query. If not, I have a local copy. I will take a local copy of that. Let's see what that is. I can actually. Yeah, no, I don't have that. That helper queries. Let me just get that here. Component updates. So here you see an example of this pattern, should you need that. A top 10 of something. Here we summarize the max of something by something. We do an order by time, in this case, timestamp descending and limit 10. So limit is give me only the 10 rows. So that's one very common thing you would do many times in KQL. And for all of these things I mentioned, let expressions, joins, and so on, there are some example queries or samples queries that use these techniques that you might want to take a look at after this session on your way home. One thing in particular, just because I'm very proud of this query, it took me 4 months to write, 5 months to write, because I couldn't simply get my head around this. And that's related to this database weight stats. If you went to Milo's session on SQL performance, did anyone go there? Yeah? So he mentioned something about database weight stats. Database weight statistics is a way where you can take a snapshot of what the database was waiting for until the database was started until now, on 23 different categories of logs, I/O, blah, blah, blah. Now, that is totally meaningless numbers until you take a second snapshot to telemetry. And now we can diff these numbers between these two and say, what did the database wait for on logs and so on between these two timestamps? That's what I wanted to compute, and you need this previous operator and so on. But I couldn't simply make it work, because you also need to cater for, like, when you go previous, is that within these 23 categories, or are we changing to a new environment or what have you? So you need to do a lot of crazy stuff, and I'll just show you what that actually means here in Custo Explorer. Have anyone using Custo Explorer, by the way, if you are? Yeah, there's one there, great. If you're not, if you're going to query anything with this is my favorite querying tool, and that's a link for it on BC Tech. This is the query that I wrote for that. So first of all, you always want to filter early, especially if you have a lot of data. You don't want to query billions of rows for experimenting with this until you actually have a query that works. So always put in some kind of timestamp, maybe 7 days or something. And then you query for whatever event you want. In this case, it's database weight snapshots. And you project early to make sure that your data, that you only get the data going forward that you want to work with. That would speed up things. Now, you can do things like pivot. You can pivot this. In this case, you evaluate a pivot function on the category, and you're summing your weight stats. And then after that, we have new columns. You can see these columns to the right, CPU, buffer, and so on. And we can summarize all of these to get, after this step, all of this, these measurements in one row for each measurement that is happening. And then after that, we start looking back with this previous operator I told you about. So we look back and see what was the previous measurement, and then we need to know that these are coming in the order of which environment, and then coming in the timestamp order, in the chronological order. And if they are not, if you are looking at the previous result from someone else, you need to throw that away. And it moves on and on and on for 120 lines. I won't do anything with that. But then after this, this is actually on our own telemetry. I can now see I nominalized the environments here, but I can see the look back period of between these two were 900 seconds. And in here, these are the most things we wait for the most on the database on these different categories. So for this particular point in time, for 15 minutes, we were waiting a lot about data I/O, buffer I/O, getting data in and out to disk, and we had a bottleneck there. So this is a very, very, very advanced example that you hopefully will never use, but I wanted to illustrate kind of the power of this language is is immense. And once you
And
get
you-
started writing any KQL, you're just gonna love it, I know.
And you query a lot of data, right?
And to query a lot of data, yes.
Okay. Let me little jump to something which probably you are doing for every day, so AL, and talk a few minutes about the custom telemetry. So what we can do with the custom telemetry? We can use it to improve our product, right? We can use it to see which feature users use, right? We can also see something different. We can see which they are not using, right? So we can then decide, should we deactivate the feature because it's not needed? Or maybe we should do something with that feature, right? Maybe we should do more promotion about it, right? So this is what custom telemetry allows us. At the end, we can use it to be a better, to do the better customer care for our customers, right? So that's only the concept, but I'm using it every day. And trust me, it's very useful to see where your customers are, right? But you also can use it to onboard your customers, right? To see how much, what they did already, right? Even not contacting with them, right? So how it's look from a technical perspective? We have something which is called feature telemetry. And this feature telemetry is a part of the system app. So you can see that in the, on the GitHub already. And there is one specific code unit which you need to know. It's feature telemetry, and there are two functions. One is the log uptake, and the second one is log error. Basically, log uptake allows you to find if we discover the feature. So if user discover the feature, if set up the feature, use it, and also undiscover, right? So imagine a situation that you have something you added to the product, or you want to you put it on the setup page. So you can assume that if someone opened that page, the feature was discovered. If someone clicked the button, for example, some option or something more, he or she set up this feature, right? And when using it through the code, you can log if someone used that feature. Then you also can see how many times. I also mentioned that all errors are in the telemetry already visible. So why we need to have a log error? And that's something which allows us to find the errors which are not displayed to the user, right? So, and also the places which you think that no one ever should get in your code. I bet you have such. What is most important, and I will show you also this code unit, it's not only just running one function. We need to specify that and make some transaction, make such contract, I would even say, that we will send this feature telemetry. Without it, we will not do it. You will not see it. Or, I should mention, VARs will see that you want to send some telemetry, right? But ESV will not get anything. And also, when we are using feature telemetry, behind there is one function which you also can use in the code directly. But that's when you use feature telemetry, you are sure that this telemetry will go to everyone, which means it will go to VAR, but also to the app publisher, right? So both of those features are those signals will be emitted. And very important thing, please also remember you shouldn't ever send something which is not GDPR compliance, right? So no one will check that, but that's illegal, I would say, probably. Or you can have at least problems. So very important thing as well is that all the events, which we will just see in the second, will be prefixed with two letters AL. That means that remember that when you will try to KQL, you will try to find your signals, you always need to add AL as well. So let me go to the demo. I will just want to show you how you can emit the telemetry. So first, which I said, is that you need to have something which is telemetry logger, right? So in this code unit, which implements the event telemetry logger, you need to have one function, which is log message, and that's in fact something which you just need to copy. And the second one, which is the event subscriber to code unit telemetry loggers and on registration telemetry logger event. When you do that, you just need to register your logger. So this is our contract where we are saying we will send telemetry from this app, right? When you do that setup, there is another functions which you can use, and I have here mine. So for example, I would like to send the telemetry when someone discover my feature, right? So I just need the code unit and this function from the code unit log uptake and my event, right? So as I said, this event, if I will look on it for in my telemetry, will also be prefixed with AL. I need to put some description, so I put easy translation as a description, and my enum, which says either this is discovered, or setup, or for example used. So this is how simple you can send your own telemetry. How it look in KQL, if I will just try to find it, this is a little different signal, but the same. So you can see that I have my feature telemetry. Maybe I will just make it a little bigger, hopefully. So I see my message that feature custom telemetry is used. I can see in the dimensions which tenant ID sent that, right? So I can identify my customer. I can see which extension sent it, right? I also can see from which company it is. But I also can see that this is my name of my feature, and this is my uptake status. So this is where I see that I use it, right? And my signal, I have it a little lower, but I also can see the object number, right? So which object sent it, which object name, and also is that this was the code unit, right? So as you can see, this is my signal which I sent before. So I can see if someone using my feature, if someone discovered it, and also, but how often also used. Maybe you have some features which are used only at the end of the month. So it can also help you to somehow track the performance, right? Think about that. Okay, Kennie, we showed very interesting, I hope, KQL, right? And very, very, I would say, advanced example. But I think you have something which will be much easier.
I think so too, I hope. So, there you go. Before I do that, I just wanted, because maybe I forgot something when I talked about KQL. If you haven't seen any of this before, you're going event IDs here and custom dimensions here and so on. So I just wanted to kind of give you an easy way, if you start looking into telemetry, to kind of get to the documentation of things. And the reason for that is that when we designed the telemetry feature from Business Central, it was important for us that it had some, let's say, design principles. First of all, it must be treated as an API, because once you start querying against this telemetry, we don't want to break your queries. We don't want to break your reports on it. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, it must be documented and discoverable in docs. So if we just throw a lot of telemetry at you and don't tell you what this is, you cannot use it for anything. And that's the third thing. It must be usable and actionable. So we will never send any telemetry to you that you cannot take an action on, because that would just be flooding you with meaningless data that you're going to pay for. So that's even double bad. So when we talk about this, looking up things in docs, I just want to show you something very easy to, if you see something in telemetry, how can you actually go and read about what is this about and why do I see this? So here I'm looking at the traces, is where we put all the telemetry except page views. And I take just 10 random rows and I project when did it happen. A message is just a human readable version of this. And this custom dimensions is where all the data actually is stored. So the first one here is operation exceeded time threshold. What is that? So if I go down into this custom dimensions, down here, this is just a JSON structure. We have this event ID on everything we emit to telemetry. When Krzysztof was putting things in log message, he put an event ID, the platform, the client. We all use a unique ID for a certain class of things. For this thing here, it was RT005. So if I don't know what this is, I can just copy this string and I can go to docs. And the docs for telemetry is aka.ms/BC Telemetry. And I can just put that RT005 in here and search for it in docs. And here I can see it's apparently something RT005. Let me find it here. 005. It is a performance. It's something with SQL. And now I can read about what this is. So in case you find something in telemetry and you don't know what this is, search for that event ID in docs and you can read about it. So it's discoverable and documented. All right, but this is all very low level and also where I think maybe telemetry got a reputation of being only for support engineers or people who are developers, which is a shame. I know why, because when we started taking Business Central to the cloud, we needed to have you as partners. If you were to put your customers online, we couldn't make you do that if you had no insights into performance, availability, stability into that system. That's why we started with telemetry, raw signal on exactly this. And we started with these Custo queries, and I was young and naive back then. I thought, okay, now you have data. I give you samples to make it easy to query data, so this will just automatically make you data-driven. What I, of course, didn't realize was that you have a lot of priorities in your partner practice. There are a lot of different things you want to do and learn that compete with telemetry, right? So Krzysztof and others told me, like, you need to make this easier and better. So I started making troubleshooting guides available in Jupyter notebooks, Power BI reports that you could download, and on and on and on. And now I thought, now we are here. Now you will be data-driven with this. I didn't realize that even for some partners, that is also a threshold you need to pass. And maybe it's still keeping things in the basement with the techies. So Krzysztof came back and he said, you need to make it clickety-click. That's what you need. For everyone to consume this outside support org, you need to make it very easy to install and consume. And so I listened to him and went back to my friends in Power BI, and they helped me get a Power BI template app published. And this is actually what you have now. So,
wait, because we are here.
Oh, that is probably good. So if you go to aka.ms BC Telemetry Report, this will take you to Power BI App Source, where you now have a Power BI app called Business Central Usage Analytics. And the way you install this is click, clickety, click. You click Get It Now. It will take you to your Power BI subscription, and then it will install it for you. And if this cloud thing doesn't work, I just did that. So you don't have to wait. It can take 10 seconds, it can take 30 seconds. And this takes you here. The app installs with sample data, which is actually something you can even use for pre-sales, because you don't have to share customer data if you just want to show how this looks. If you want to demo it, you can take that. That's actually some of the scenarios we try to put out there. My dream is that this app will make telemetry something you consume both in your pre-sales organization, with follow-ups with customers, in implementation projects, functional consultants, and then also the performance investigations and so on. But if you get this part of your partner organization involved, it will not be only a technical exercise, but something that can truly make your partner practice data-driven. And I saw end customers here. This is great because you could have this as well. If you, together with your partner, decide who needs to host the telemetry, who needs to host the reports, and then the other part can consume that, then there's nothing in here that prohibits that. And I think if you have a strong partner-customer relationship, maybe this is something that can benefit both parties. All right, so the way you then connect this to your data is, it states up here. You're viewing this app with sample data. So connect your data if you click here. Let's try that. And what this does is you need to tell the app, where is my data stored? This is this application insights application ID. And you need to tell it how many days of data, how many days do you want this app to show? Because what this app will do every day at midnight is it will refresh for the next day. So it will always look back 1 day, 7 days, 30 days, how many you configure here. In the look back period, you can set up to, I think, 2 years, if that's your retention policy for telemetry. And then you just have a sliding window of that, so no need to query telemetry with KQL anymore. Well, you might need to do that if you have questions that cannot be answered with this app, but maybe start with the app and share that within your partner organization. Let's just, for now, do it with sample data. So the app has 4 parts: usage, errors, performance, and administration, catering for different, say, usage scenarios. So for usage, you can see sessions. If you use the same application insights resource for multiple AAD tenants, you can, in an easy way, either filter on it up here, or you can simply just click on an AAD tenant and see this particular AAD tenant had this many page views or sessions in this case, and then see what types of sessions it is, admin, delegated, or normal users, and whether it's interactive sessions or background sessions. You can see session distribution over the day, over the week, and over whatever period of time you put into that app. You can look at which clients they use, desktop, tablet, phone, which browsers they use, which screen size they use. It could be that if you are dealing with a customer with like big monitors, maybe your UX will be different than if you are dealing with a place where they use old laptops with Windows XP. You can use locations report to see from where people log in. This is from where people log into these systems, as well as which languages do they use not localizations, but which languages do they use in the client. Something Krzysztof said that for an ISV, it's nice to know. Could also be for in onboarding or a situation that maybe you find out that some of that training needs to be in Danish or in Italian because you have people who would like that. Maybe you didn't know that. You can see on page views what are the popular pages, and therefore also, so that could be used for better go live, that if you, or after go live, if customers have heavy use of a given page, maybe help them get that on the role center. So remove some friction there. Or in user acceptance testing and before after go live, if you have absence of data here, that means no one have tested these pages. So this is your status report for user acceptance testing right there. You don't even have to write it. You can just share this with your customer. And now the sponsor on the customer end can follow along and maybe find out what do they need to do more. Again, you get these visuals. This is something that is on most of these pages, that you get representations over the day, over the week, and over time. And again, so just different types of things. In this case, reporting. So you can see which reports they use. You can see how they run reports, whether they download, print, or send to inbox. You can see what types of layouts they use. For instance, here I can see that this particular customers have a little bit of Excel layout usage. That's actually nice to know after go live. If you have that 3-6 months follow up with the customer, looks like you are starting to use Excel layouts. Excel layouts is an end user feature from version 20, where end users can actually lay out and consume their reports with Excel. So that means you can have a different way of collaborating on reporting, where you as a partner is more coding the report objects, and the end users are dealing with the way they want to lay out their reports for things where that doesn't need to go on paper. So absence of Excel means you could just have this conversation. If you see Excel here, it means you could have that conversation of, should we do more about that? Should we do some training on Power Query and get you more self-service on the way you do reports? Feature usage is now as seen from the environment. All of this is per environment. So if Krzysztof and his friends are doing their thing with feature telemetry as ISVs, you will actually see it here. Now, the most important ISV for this data set I have is Microsoft, because the base app is also emitting telemetry here. So you can see which features are being used. You can see how often they are being used, and if you have ISVs extensions that add telemetry, feature telemetry, you will see that there as well. Again, if data is there, it means they are using it. If there's absence of data here, they are not using it. So again, follow-up conversations with the customer. Look, you paid us $3 billion to create these extensions for you to solve this problem, but you're not using that. What's going on? Should we have a conversation about that? Or so a lot of this, you can tweak this message in two ways. You can say, how can we sell more billable hours to our customers? Or you could have a different way of saying this. How can we be that valuable partner to our close collaboration between our customers and bring more value? If they're spending money on things that they are not gaining anything for, that's wasting their money. So by having these kinds of conversation, maybe billable hours is just an added benefit. You would have happier customers, maybe happier developers, because you're doing something that matters. Maybe I'm stretching it here, but maybe you get the point. Checklists. So onboarding have checklists. Here you can see whether the customers are actually completing their checklists or where they stop in their checklist. You can see how many went from not started into progress. In this case, 16. But apparently one skipped, 6 actually completed, means someone actually got stuck here and never completed their checklist. Could be a good conversation before go live to see whether there's something here that they haven't set up. Integrations to and from Business Central, not including Microsoft connectors. That's the next report. Here you can see if integrations to and from external systems are happening. Could be the customer have installed a new extension that you didn't know about that is chatting to some Azure function somewhere. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but here you have the overview of that. What are the publishers that emit or is having endpoints that is being called, ingoing, outgoing? Which endpoints do you have? And again, these the chatty extensions here, you can see which ones are chatty. And anything you have here, you can filter on. So if you're interested mostly in incoming, you can of course filter on that. And then connectors, is the customer using any connectors? Did they start up taking Power BI since the last time, or Power Automate? You can see that, which endpoints they use. And finally, you can check, it seems like this is a customer we need to talk to because these guys apparently are doing basic auth on online. So we might need to start a migration project because these integrations down here, these endpoints, will stop working in a month. For each of the reports, now I just showed you the usage report, they have an about the report that tells you like what am I seeing here. And if I want to learn more, I can also see if I have older versions, especially on premises, when did this, so if I don't see any data here, is it because I'm on an older version? I can get directly to a KQL sample of this particular type of data, and I can go directly to the documentation to read more. So, just quick like hands. How many in an onboarding project do you think could use this? Would this be useful? Yeah? How many of you are doing things like this today? A few. Oh, nice. For the ones that sit, and yes, this would be nice, but we are not doing it. The app is free. Will cost you $10 a month for a Power BI subscription, and you need to set up telemetry that might cost a little bit. And then you have all of this. But you have more, and I don't have time to show everything. I'll just show a few things. You have a full error dashboard on everything, every error that happens in the system, whether it's users getting errors, whether it's integrations to and from Business Central, or errors happening in the system. You have a dashboard, you can go directly filter on a customer and get to what's happening. So before, after go live, user acceptance testing, you can drive these down, you can monitor these after the fact and see whether there's an increase in errors for a particular customer. And each of these types of errors have their own report, just like you had usage. Performance. You have performance reports. Similar, you can dive into, say, long-running SQL queries. You can see exactly here in which places do we have long-running SQL queries, what types of queries, how much time do we actually spend here. You can dive further down into in which objects does it happen, and these are job queues that run long-running SQL queries. This is the AL call stack. This is a SQL statement that does it, including how many joins, how many sifts do you have, and so on. And again, you have long-running queries over the day and over the week. And so a lot of things you can do in performance, not necessarily proactively, but you can maybe, if you have a support case, you can go back in time, because that's what telemetry is all about. What happened in the past, and I can go analyze here. And then finally, for administration, you get an inventory report. Every environment we have in telemetry, we can see which versions they are on, which localizations, when are they going to be updated, days until update, is there a deadline for this? You can see a change report across everything that could happen, including environment changes, extension changes, field configuration changes, so that you can answer that question. Something is not right since Friday. You zoom down on the change report and you find out it's because this extension was installed or this was updated. And maybe that can help you with the time to mitigate for a customer case. So that was kind of a quick overview of the environment report.
Let me just switch.
Yes, you can do that. But there's more. Because we also realized that you have a lot of ISVs, and this is mostly for VARs. The kind of toys here are dinosaurs. It's not because you are dinosaurs, or maybe some of you are, I hope not, because you want to go into this new world, and today we are announcing a public preview of an app for ISVs, specifically for ISVs. You can go and get to App Source today and have that same type of experience that the VARs have, including things that are only for ISVs. Can I show one thing? Is that okay?
Yes, of course.
Let me just switch to this, because ISVs have other things in their telemetry. They actually have things like key vault usage, which is fine. You are looking up secrets in your app. But what if you have key vault failures? That would actually mean bad things in your app. Things will stop working. You can monitor that. You can monitor in this performance report how performant are your updates. That means your app updates. So if you have something that is very long here, maybe you can uptake this new data transfer thing you saw in the keynote and make your users happier because updates are going faster. You can also have an inventory report. This is now not on environment, but pivoted towards how is my app installed across the world on different tenants in which versions, and where, which AD tenants actually installed it. You can you can see here what are my update flows from which version to which version, how many update between them. So you have a change report like that. And finally, you have an ability to see what type of telemetry do we have in our telemetry, and which environments are, say, the noisiest ones, in case you want to go with the thing that Krzysztof is going to show you in a minute about controlling costs. It's nice to know both which environments are noisy and which event IDs are noisy. So you can go and install this app now from App Source and connect it to your ISV telemetry, and now you have the ability to be data-driven there as well.
Okay, I will just, and I will not do marketing. Kennie is very good in marketing his app. But to be honest, I really see it like very big value for us, right? I was, because we didn't have that app, right, before, I needed to create a very similar thing for us. And to be honest, it was it's very useful, as it's not only checked by me, but also, to be honest, the person who first see it is my boss. Every week he checking it on Monday, and I'm really glad that he is doing that. But I also wanted to point one thing. Maybe you know, as ESV or by also a VAR, you can have the support question, something is not working, and then you have then you are asking customer, okay, which version do you have? You don't need to do it anymore, right? One of the developers in my team did that. I was like, oh, it started like a whole discussion because he asked the end user. He said that he don't know, so he included in email IT manager, but he also didn't know, so he included the partner, right? And how to check which version we have. 5 seconds, and you have it from telemetry, right? Either you have it from the app, either you will KQL that, right? So that's how you can work faster as well, right? You know this data already, don't ask, right? And the fix was easy. Just update to the new version, right? And you could save a lot of emails, right? So also show how professional you are with that, right? And 2 links which Kennie put, those are 2 links to those 2 apps, right? One is for VARs, which was already on App Source, and this one, that was the first time.
It was. This is the first time we've shown it, actually, so you are kind of the very first people to see this. 3 things before I hand it over to Krzysztof. Convince your boss, docs. So maybe you want to go back and say, this is really good, I want this. And your boss will go, yeah, but Is it just maybe another technical exercise, and is this really useful? So aka.ms.bc telemetry is our documentation for telemetry, and in here we have documented the app, and under here under use the app, here is how you get it, how you connect, how you configure, how you share it with customers or internally. And then down here, there's a link to use the app, where we try to put in exactly these. This is probably, I mean, you're probably either here or in the developer part if you're at this conference, but maybe your manager is more into sales, or maybe a product owner like Krzysztof's manager, or maybe someone who is doing project implementations. So for each of these personas, we wrote or identified scenarios for them where the app could be useful. So once you go and present this back home, take a look at the scenarios so you kind of have some ammunition, and then demo the app with sample data if you want, and say, look, this is how we could do it change our sales process. This is how we could change our implementation project, ways we do implementations. This is how we could change the way we do support. And maybe that will make it easier for you to implement this back home.
Yeah, we know how hard it is to get the internal hours, right, for something. So I think this is very useful to get such internal hours, right? Because at the end, this will help, as I said, to be more customer focused, right? But also it will save a lot of money to organization.
Yes. And changing an organization to be more data-driven can be very hard. And this is actually where this Gartner BI maturity model comes from. So what I did, I took that model and interpreted that in the context of a partner and with data as telemetry. And then this telemetry maturity model came out of that. It has these 5 stages that comes from Gartner's model. And for each of these stages, there's a deck here you can go and take a look at when you come home that takes you through, if you're unaware and have only enabled telemetry, and some of you haven't even enabled telemetry yet, there's some guidance in the deck that states, if you're here, try to get some quick wins, and that will easily take you to the next step. And that will take you, some of the things that Krzysztof is going to talk about is actually using telemetry to be proactive. This part is how could you, in your implementation practice, in the way you do customer projects, use telemetry in a repeatable fashion. And then, I won't say it's nirvana, but it's definitely something that I hope with data you can change the way you do business. And the people among you that do this well, I think will have a big competitive advantage over partners who don't do it.
Thank you. Okay, so I would like to show you how to be on this last step of that model, which I think you can achieve very easy with the notifications, right? So what you can do in the system. In fact, there are 3 options. I will just show you all of those. You can, for example, set up the alerts directly in application inside. It's paid feature, but it's very not flexible, right? That's something which I don't like to use. Because you can only send email, maybe text message, but you don't have a lot of place there to do something crazy with the notification. The other 2 options I really like, and depends what you want. If you want to have that, for example, consultant will have access there. You can use Power Automate, or you can use Logic App. I will show you the example on Logic App, but I have also a lot of Power Automate flows which I can share with you, right? So what we can do is we can check if there are any signals in the telemetry, and then we can do something with that. And that can be whatever you want. For example, I'm sending such messages. One of the messages which I'm sending as a ESV, I want to know which tenant IDs install my app last day. So every night I'm getting an email, and to be honest, everyone almost in our organization get that those people install the email, install our apps. But I'm also getting something much often. I hope I don't get it much often, but I'm trying to send it or check much more often than one per day. So this is where someone has error when installing the app, right? And I can give you real example. So one of our customer installed the app or tried to install the app in Finnish language, right? Or Swedish, I don't remember. But in fact, it was not English one. And it turns out that it's not possible. There is an error, right? Some overflow, whatever it was, right? But we get an email before they contact us, right? So what we did, I just was next to the computer. I just wrote to them, hey, you have an issue with the installation. Please change to language to English, right? What we later did, thanks to that, we also changed our process of installing the apps, right? We changed the code to not have this error. But we also changed the process when submitting the apps. We now testing all the apps in all the languages which we are using, right? So someone just need to install them in each language. And that's all because of this one small email which we get because of the notification that someone failed, right? But customer was really surprised because, you know, when you install the app, now you will be able, but when you install the app, you just can go to the coffee and you don't see the results, right? It's just happening in the background, and maybe now someone even don't go to the extension management. We contact before they knew that they failed with the installation. So let me just show you how we can do it. But for that, I will just try to enable one of those. I don't know if we will get email during our presentation, but let's see. So I said about the installation, but imagine situation that you also can do it, for example, for failing job queues, right? So if I have my job queue entry, my logic app, what I can do. First of all, there is no trigger in application inside. So you cannot get information right away. You just need to use as a trigger something, which I'm using, for example, every minute I would like to send an email that my job queue fail if it fail, right? So I just use this as a parameter. But later, the help of KQL starts. So what I can do, I can run the query and see if I have any records which will trigger me sending email, right? So let me just hide this one. Oh, I love it. Let me just open it one more time. I think I don't want to write it right now, but I have prepared those KQL here. So you can see that I have very easy, really easy, not so complicated as Kennie was showing, example how you can find failing job queues. I just need one event ID, and I need to summarize to see how many of them I have. In the last 24 hours, I have 2 of them, right? So good, we have something. So this is what I'm checking, and for each such row, I have a condition that if my number of errors is greater than 0, I need to do something, right? So what I'm doing if I have more than 0? I'm just sending this another query, which shows me all the data in this query about the job queue, and I'm just writing it as HTML table. After that, I can do whatever I want. I just send it as an email, right? But I can use Teams, I can use DevOps, or whatever else is needed, right? So let me just open email. This is what I will get. Job queue error. That's all, right? But I can see, first of all, I can see what the company, what code you need, what environment. I can even see which user triggered the job queue, by the way, right? But as you can see, it's also GUID. I can find it in Business Central, but it's also GDPR compliance. And I can see job queue ID. So imagine situation that not only you're doing that, but you're also sending to yourself email with error code, because you can do it with API, for example, and approve to restart the job queue automatically, right? That's only the idea. I will not show you that, but that's what you have. We have only 12 minutes left, so let me just go back to our presentation and just show you last topic here, which I will just very briefly touch, right? Cost control, right? So remember that 5 gigabytes is free, right? And this is count per for injection of the data, right? And it's also per month, right? What means injection? So to insert the data to the system, right? I don't like the word injection. But you have also retention policy 90 days. That can be not enough for the ESVs because you would like to check more data and rather about the installs and upgrades and so on. So that's, please remember about this. You can extend it. But you have few things which can control that, right? One is set daily cap limits, which allows you to say how much data per day you would like to get, right? If you will have more, it will stop, it will not inject more, right? So you are losing data, to be honest, but you are not losing money. The second thing which you can do is data collection rules, right? So what you can do with data collection rules, you can, before injection, you can filter the data which you like. For example, you have a lot of data which is related to the web service calls, right? And you don't care about successful one. You can find on BC Tech example how to filter that you would like only to get those calls which are failing, right? And then you don't need to have so much data anymore in application inside. And the concept which one of the community members also did is custom endpoints, right? So in custom endpoints, and the code also you can find on Microsoft blog, right? AJ Kaufman created a function originally to split, for example, or to filter also the data. So instead of sending the data directly to application inside through Microsoft, let's say, you can create your own Azure function which will get the data, and then you can do with that data whatever you want, right? Of course, you will pay for the application, for Azure function, but you will be able to control everything. You can store it in some database, whatever you really want. Right, so as I said, the sample is also on the Microsoft site, but that also wanted to say, can I put there everything which community also is doing? So examples, blog posts, and all kind of that stuff. Okay, we have just 4 minutes, but I think you just need to explain that slide.
Yes. What's new in telemetry? So since wave 1, you can see we keep adding a lot of data that we think, or signal that we think is being useful for you. If there are things of this where you say, don't care, use a data collection rule. We didn't actually show it here, but it's in the deck, and it's also on BC Tech, how to set it up. So you can just ignore that if you don't like it. One of the things that I like in Wave 1 telemetry that I think is useful is the weight stats, I think, because I think that will change. Once you get started on this, will change the way you do performance tuning on SAS, something you have never been able to see before. Krzysztof might have other.
Yeah, I have one, and that's really like in the bottom, right? So user telemetry ID on a user card. This is what I deeply said briefly, is you can connect your user with telemetry, so you can track as a VAR who did that.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you think, both Krzysztof, not Christian, it's a bit late today. Krzysztof and Kennie was talking about GDPR and privacy, and it's all compliant. And now you can see who did it, right? But this is actually implemented in a way that is GDPR compliant, because we're not locking the user ID here. If we were locking the user ID from the user card, telemetry would be GDPR compliant, but because now you have user identifiable information. What we lock instead is a pseudo identifier, a new GUID called Telemetry ID, and you think, what's the difference here? The difference here is, with GDPR, one of the most important things with GDPR is the right to be forgotten, the right to be deleted. And what you can do in the user card is you can rotate that user telemetry ID, or you can put it to 0 as a tenant admin, meaning that you can break the connection from the user card to whatever is stored in telemetry. And if that connection is lost on the user card, there's nothing you can do on telemetry that makes that GUID referable to John or Johanna. They're also beyond here on the slide. This is something that I hope to get in the near or long-term future. If you have other ideas of things that would make your life easier as an ISV, VAR, or end customer, let me know, and let's see if we can put that into that backlog. Next slide. Talking about backlog, you can always go to BC Tech and see when things was added, even new stuff. I add samples before they go on docs. So if you go to the telemetry changelog on BC Tech, you always kind of have that view on things as well. And then we have call to actions.
Yeah. So we would like that you will start using telemetry, right? I like it because it's really give me some benefits. So how you can start? The first, just do the setup, right? Either on your environment, either on your app. That's really simple, right? Few minutes and you will be done. Install those Power BI apps, right? Either it will be for VARs, either for ESVs, but that's already showing you some data, right? You don't even need to write any KQL. But explore more, right? So there is a lot of examples, there is a lot of documentation about telemetry. And as I said, samples on BC Tech, you have really crazy examples, right? But also very useful examples, right? So you don't need to write from scratch your own KQL.
And go and install the apps today, right? They're free, they're open source, and will cost you $10 a month for a Power BI subscription that you probably already have per people using that. I'm pretty sure that the value of having this kind of insights is worth more than $10 a month. I'm fairly certain it is.
And I would not be community person if I would not say also go to the blog post. There's a lot of people which are blogging about. One of them is me, but also Stefano from Italy. Also Bert is also from Netherlands. Morten from Denmark as well. So I could put much more here. But you also all blogs you can also find on BC Tech, right? So that was it from our side. So because we have 5 minutes, but we can stay more. We will go question in a second, but I also would like, when we are answering the questions, I also would like just to ask you to answer our question, right? So what Kennie in fact can do for you, right? I can just tell that I would also want something from that. And now we can go with the question. I need to take this one. Yeah.
I have actually 2 questions.
We need some noise on that blue one.
Can
Try
we?
again.
Yeah. Try now.
Hello. I have 2 questions. The first is what's the performance penalty or cost of logging telemetry events?
Let me take that.
And-
Let me take that first.
Yeah.
Quick. Is there a performance penalty of enabling telemetry? Yes, there is. It's probably like a 0.5%. Something. Every time you do something in a server, it will have a performance penalty. Will you notice? No.
Second question, how much of the goodness we can have in on-premises system?
Good. So the question was on-prem. You can have actually most of this. There are a few things you cannot have. So environment telemetry for VARs is only emitted from the control plane in SaaS, so you don't get that. Environment lifecycle. You don't currently, maybe you get, maybe you don't get. I need to check because it might have changed. Client telemetry, which means page views, session, the session types and things, might not be available, but Krzysztof tells me it is. And then the last thing is, most is, and it's documented on docs which types of things are available on-prem. There is one thing for on-prem. We cannot emit the AD tenant because you're not using AD. So if you use this for on-premises, use one telemetry resource for each environment, because if not, you have mix and match and cannot know if this is coming from customer A and B. Yes. Other questions?
Okay, I have the question about cost control you showed, because if we have our ISV solution and we have this connection string ID to Azure Insights, and a lot of customers is using the telemetry, how much approximately data per day? Of course, it depends on values.
It depends on usage.
So how much data we can expect by customer about this free tier will be enough for how many customers?
It will be enough. I think I don't pay anything for telemetry for our customers, right?
Okay.
If you have an app that is only doing integrations, like EDI,
then you will
generate a lot of data. So what you do in that case is you set a data collection rule that samples on the incoming, outgoing web service requests, so that you still get the trends, but not necessarily the full picture.
Thank you.
Cannot hear you.
Hello?
Yes.
If you set up your own endpoint,
Good.
what
You
do
need
you
to
need?
repeat the question. I couldn't hear.
Okay. If you set up your own endpoint to receive instrumentation or to receive the telemetry, what does it need to expect? What do you use? It's a web service. What sort of things come into it?
Yes. So the details are on BC Tech. For a custom endpoint, the question is what can you do? As seen from Business Central, the only thing you need is to comply with the connection string format, which is instrumentation key equals blah, and then the host's endpoint. That's it. Then we will send you the data format from Application Insights to that, and then you take care of it. The format is documented. The sample code that AJ wrote for the filtering part can parse it. And the extension I did for the splitter function can then send it in different directions. But it's totally up to you.
Yeah.
Right.
You do anything with it.
Here we have a question, and I will go for that one.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your brilliant presentation. Could I please ask a very practical question on out-of-the-box Power BI? Is it easy, simple, out-of-the-box analyzing data by hour? So let's say customer says we experience issues between 10 and 11. Is it simple piece of cake for me to do this analysis? Because I'm only used to doing it by day, but can I focus on a particular hour? Thank you.
So the data for the app is aggregating by hour when I read KQL into the Power BI apps. I do summarize by hour. I think I do. So if you want different granularity, you can either take the source code and do your own, or you can go further into Krzysztof. What I think I will do when I have the time for it is probably have some links in the Power BI app that can open application insights directly with a query that you can then analyze further with. It's not science fiction, it's just,
there is no to about this question.
I know what to do and it's documented how to do it. It's just a matter of maybe in the next release or before Christmas. Let me say, before Christmas you will have that. Right, yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes?
Yeah. Blue one.
Does it work? Yeah. So we have some customers that are very strict on the firewall on premises. Can it be something that docs, like, can a customer with this firewall block the signals too? And what do you need to allow in the customer's firewall to get it through?
Got it. The question is, if you are on-prem and the IT department have set up firewalls, like what do you do? I think you need to so what you can do is the connection string that you have if it's the environment telemetry has the host endpoint. So you give that to the IT department and they need to figure out in DNS whether they can filter on host or if there's changing IPs, they need to deal with that.
Yeah, but that's very good question because we had it from time to time, right? So we even had someone on the workshop which was blocked at some moment, right? And probably it was that her IT department that see something is going on, right? That she's sending the data through the firewall. So have it in mind. Very good one.
Question? Yes.
Hello. If you want to do a multi-tenant query using Azure Monitor, is there a best practice for that? Or?
So the question is if you want to do multi-tenancy. So that would be if you have app insights, data for different customers and different application insights. Is that the question?
Yes, indeed.
So you can do that from log analytics, not from... you can do that from the back end, which is called log analytics, where you simply do, I guess you do a union or you do... I don't know the construct actually.
No, you can, everything is going to one,
okay.
right?
You can do that. And it would just scale out and then reach back with that.
But that's also a good question because sometimes I got it that should we have multiple application insights, right? And in theory, if you are doing cloud, that doesn't matter because you always can filter on the environment name. If you're doing on-prem, then I would say, I think that it would be good to split because then you have each customer you can have different application inside because then tenant ID is common or default, right? But in cloud, for example, for all 8 apps, I have one application key, right? Because they are connected, so I'm using just one, this application key for all, right? For all apps.
All right, thank you.
So we have been told to empty the room, but this is the last session.
Yes.
We'll ignore that. And then you can throw us out. So we get a lot of questions about petitioning like this. How should we petition things on customer? And I think the answer from me is depending on how you want to use this. So if you want to use this where you have one customer with an app and you want to share this with the customer, then you petition with one AAD tenant or one environment, one application insights, one Power BI. Very easy, easy to share, no mistakes. Then the other part of this is someone would like to analyze across things with the Power BI app. In that case, keep this and do a splitter, as we told here with the splitter function. So it's one copy to the customer thing, one copy to yourself. You could even filter and sample your own if you don't want the full details there. And then you can Power BI on top of that, and you have cross-customer things there. So there you can mix and match. There's totally, especially with custom endpoints and with these new filtering capabilities, there are no limits of what you can do. Even for on-prem, you could have on-prem where you have fake instrumentation keys and then just send them to the custom endpoint. They would know this instrumentation key is coming from customer A, blah, blah, blah. And then this guy will inject into the signal the missing thing and just send it over. You can do whatever you like.
All right. Thank
Any
you very
more questions?
I think not.
We can take questions after if you're too shy. And
Yes.
reach out, Twitter, email, whatever. Whenever you have good ideas that I think can be used for other partners, I will put them out there without your name. Because whatever we do together is something that helps all of us, all of you.
Thank you.